Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. I'm here with Paul Selig, and it's just a wonderful and fascinating and uplifting conversation we have. And before the break, I was asking about whether we are choosing our incarnations, for example, to be a murderer, a rapist, or someone who creates a lot of pain. In that regard, I wonder, do we also come in to teach others? Or are we only coming in to learn ourselves?
Well, I hear both are the same. The teacher and the learner are not separate. Nobody has arrived to the level where there's no teaching needed, where there is no teaching needed.
Mm-hmm. So there is actually always, we cannot live on that octave of that place of learning alone. We do always share our teachings.
Let me ask yes and no. They're saying yes and no. There are levels of agreement where a student is needed, where a student isn't needed. You are the student and the teacher simultaneously. You are the student and the teacher simultaneously in your relationship to the manifest world, in your relationship to the manifest world. Having a partner with you allows you certain lessons, being in solitary action gives you other opportunities to learn, gives you other opportunities to learn and to teach as well. Who gets taught if you're alone? He says, who gets taught if you are alone? He says, the same one who is the teacher, the same one who is the teacher. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? You become both teacher and student. You become both teacher and student in that articulation period. Same period.
So your book about freedom, which I just love, emphasizes the importance of freedom. And I have to say, this was one of my greatest values that I discovered, in my 30s, which I didn't know that freedom was so important to me. So can you tell us a little bit more about how to attain more freedom? Because I think a lot of people feel the opposite.
I don't know if it's about attaining freedom as much as it's about aligning to it as a way of being. And I could be wrong here. When the guides talk about freedom, they're talking in a lot of ways about freedom from fear and freedom from prescribed structures, what we think should be there because it's always been there, or who are we without this? And all of those things, I suspect, attach us to sort of a lower agreement. So who am I without the job? Who am I without the marriage? Who am I without whatever, So when the guides work with the claim, I am free, I am free, I am free, again, they're using the I am as the true self that is always free. How could the true self not be free? And you say, well, if I'm free, why am I in this terrible situation or this awful marriage or whatever? But the true self, as you align to that aspect of self, they would suggest, I think, is always free. And the manifestation of that realization then comes at the cost of the old, which means you've got to be willing to release these things that you've been attached to, that are binding you. They talk about it quite simply as, a false ceiling, a dropped ceiling, and we've all been looking up at this shared idea of what we're capable of and what we can be and how we can be known. And the guides say really what we're doing is we're punching a hole or moving a hole through that false ceiling that's only been there because we've all decided it can be, should be, because it's always been there. And when you begin to do that, actually you're beginning to attend to what they call the upper room, what exists beyond this floor and has always been there. Now, the guides work with attunements, and they're attuning us to energy or a level of vibration that they say has always been there. They say we're all radios, we're always in broadcast. Our broadcast is our consciousness. And we've only been playing the stations that we've been taught to play. These other stations are there as well. So these claims of truth, and I am free, they would say is a claim of truth because the true self is always free, is basically tuning the radio that you are to play that broadcast. When it's like a radio station or a jukebox, you put the numbers in on the jukebox, a certain song plays. And if you work with the attunements, they would say the energy is always present at that level. And then you get to work with the energy and then integrate it until it becomes, how you operate. For the most part now, we're so used to playing the old stations, which is I'm not free and the world isn't going to give me what I need and you've got to struggle or be frightened or all those things. We're so used to playing the lower stations that we play the higher stage. We go, oh my God, what's this? And we revert right back to the old. So you have to get used to playing the new station and being in that level of vibration, I suspect, in order to align to it more fully and have that experience of it. But they say it's there because, in fact, you already are free. You just don't know it. I'll say, the guys have done workshops and they've said to everybody at the end of the workshop, you don't have to go home again if you don't want to. You're choosing to. Mm-hmm. I got a 3-hour drive. Oh my God, I got to go to work tomorrow. They're saying you don't have to, you're choosing to. And as long as you're choosing to do it, it's fine. But you're in choice. The guides once said to a room full of women, you can all leave your husbands today. And there was this scream that went up in the room and then all this laughter, and they realized they could. The guides weren't saying go leave your husband. They were saying, you can. You're choosing to stay where you are. You're choosing this. And there are other choices that are available, but you have to know that you're free to make them.
Well, the question is what we're choosing from. Are we choosing from the small self or are we choosing from our truth?
You're absolutely right. That is the question. And, the guides say the small self thinks and the true self knows. And the small self looks at the list of possibilities that he or she has inherited and chooses from that list, right, because that's all he's known. But the true self, I suspect, has access to what exists beyond that list because it's not conditioned to expect them, So, the guides say we're always ordering off of the menu of what we think we can have. It wouldn't occur to us to order something that's not on that menu. And it's a limited menu.
Mm-hmm. So how do we know, though, that the true self is speaking? That we are making a choice from the true self, especially if it causes us fear?
Well, the true self, I understand, is never afraid. That's one thing. So if I'm frightened, it's not likely the true self that speaks. That's an easy one. And when you know anything, truly know, there's never a question, So it's an interesting thing. But if you go to the difference between, remembering what it was like to know that you were in love or know that you got the job or know what the doctor said the diagnosis was, there's no fear in that knowing. The fear comes up when you're thinking, well, but is the person going to love me back? Am I going to survive the diagnosis? All of those things are thoughts. And the guides say when you're in your knowing, there is no question attached. Now, I'm cautious because occasionally people can say, I was in my knowing, and then they can do something just, horrific. And we're responsible to our choices. And I don't know if the guides are presuming a level of health, and integrity in this. I'm going to ask because I'm curious. Yes, of course we are. Yes, of course we are. We're not speaking to delusion here. We're not speaking to delusion here. Delusion would be, I will do it my way. I will do it my way to confirm it. And everybody will confirm it, as opposed to I will be here, as opposed to I will be here and do what is before me and do what is before me. And the results are not mine. And the results are not mine. True knowing holds humility. True knowing holds humility and always will, period. I hear period.
I'm just wondering, when I connect to my true self and my true self tells me, leave my job, leave my home, and it feels right. But of course, the little self says, oh my God, what are you doing? So then you are in this conundrum of having to choose. And I guess these are the times where you have to check into the upper room again to get that perspective of the true self.
I think so. I woke up one morning about 4.5 years ago, and I knew it was time to leave my academic jobs. I knew it. And I just woke up knowing it. And then I spent the next 4 or 6 months debating it, calling my accountant, calling every psychic I knew on the Eastern Seaboard, But when I knew, I wasn't afraid. I made myself nice and miserable for about 6 months. But, I was leaving a job I'd been in for 25 years, and benefits and retirement and all those things to do this crazy work. But, I made it through, for whatever reasons. That was part of my passage. I'm not very cavalier. I'm very cautious by part of my nature. I don't step into the void without testing it. And, so that was my process. It was the same process. When the true self knows, the small self thinks. Yeah. That's how I hear it.
Yeah. I have one last question, which is basically, can we all talk to our guides? Are they there for all of us?
Well, I hear yes and no. They're always present. There's always present, but there are different ways to communicate. You can always talk to them. And you may not be able to hear them as he does, but otherwise, there are other ways to learn and be in a communication with them. Tell them this, yes. So I'm a clairaudient. That's my primary work. But, the guides I work with aren't necessarily solving my small self's problems. I really wish they would. These guides are teachers. They're here to teach. I don't care if they ever I don't know if they care that I ever get a date or get what I want. I mean, I don't know that that's their thing. But, I have this one ability, but knowing is another ability. And I think our guides work with us in many different ways, and many of them may be rather subtle. But I do think we're being supported and even steered. We just have to open to listen. That's what I think. We
all have guides.
I believe so, yes.
And they all can be asked to support.
I hear yes.
So the question is just, are we paying attention or listening, or are we losing trust when things not happen the way we want to?
All of the above.
Yeah. Paul, unfortunately, we don't have 5 hours. I wish we would, or more. This was wonderful, as also last time. It was just wonderful to see you and work with you. And thank you for the guides to show also their teachings to us and share this. How can people find you? How can people read more about your next book and things like that?
My website is my name. It's paulselig.com. That's the best place to find out where events are. I channel almost every Wednesday night. I travel with workshops quite frequently. So I'm all over the place. And there's a calendar up on the site. And the books can be bought at all the major booksellers or, online at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or IndieBound. They're easily gettable. And that's it.
Well, I'm grateful for you and for your guides to make you wake up to paying attention and listening, and for all the teachings that you're sharing and all the difference you're making in this world. And those teachings are certainly needed right now very much, because so many of us are looking for the true and divine self. So thank you for making your part happen.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into Empowerment Radio. And yes, definitely check out Paul's site and his Wednesday channelings and his books. It makes a huge difference in everybody's life who actually have taken the time to read his work and get connected to the teachings and the energy. So I hope you're going to be also one of them. Until next time, take care. Goodbye.